Have you ever heard of a black bear guarding a tomb? According to my dad, my great-grandfather was a tomb raider. One time, as he was emerging halfway out of a tomb tunnel, he was suddenly dragged away in an instant. His companions searched the mountains for a long time before they found a few white bones in a cave. On the ground, they also found one of my great-grandfather's shoes. They suspected that my great-grandfather was eaten by a black bear. My great-grandmother didn't believe it. She insisted on going up the mountain to find him, but she never returned. When my grandfather decided to go up the mountain to look for my great-grandmother, the villagers tried to stop him, but he insisted on going. Later, he came back to the village with one arm partially eaten, his body covered in blood, and his mind completely shattered. All he could do was mutter, "There's a black bear on the mountain, a black bear that eats people." Our village is located at the foot of Longling Mountain. According to the elders in the village, buried deep within the mountain lies an emperor's tomb. The entrance to the tomb is guarded by a black bear. The mountain forest is perpetually shrouded in heavy fog, so thick that you can't see your hand in front of you. No one has ever actually seen the black bear. No one knows what the black bear looks like. But whenever a tomb raider gets near the tomb's entrance, they are dragged away and eaten by the black bear. My great-grandfather was one of the tomb raiders eaten by the black bear. When I was little, every time my grandfather brought up my great-grandfather, he would get teary-eyed and look out toward the distant mountain range. He said, "Alex, you're the last of our family's bloodline. When you grow up, promise me you'll never go up that mountain looking for the tomb." As a kid, I didn't understand why my great-grandfather would risk his life raiding tombs. People in the village relied on the mountains for their livelihood. Hunting and gathering herbs were enough to get by. My great-grandfather was just too greedy. But when I grew up, things changed. My dad was diagnosed with lung cancer and needed medication and chemotherapy. The money my mom and I earned with our hands wasn't nearly enough to cover his treatment. I was so stressed I started going gray at a young age. I was already 30, unmarried, and still struggling to make ends meet. My mom felt sorry for me and said maybe we should stop treating my dad, but I couldn't agree to that. As long as we could buy him a few more years, it was worth it. Money? I'd figure out how to earn it no matter what. Lately, I'd been having recurring dreams. In them, I found myself inside an enormous tomb. I lifted the lid of a coffin to reveal gold and jade treasures inside. Just as I was gleefully stuffing them into my pockets, something suddenly yanked me violently from behind. My body would jolt and I'd wake up. One morning, my mom came into my room and yanked my blanket off, pointing toward the courtyard. "Alex, get up. There are people outside." I scrambled out of bed. In the courtyard stood 5 middle-aged men. Their skin was unnaturally pale, like they never saw the sun, and they had no color in their faces. Judging by their looks, they weren't locals. When outsiders come to our village, it's usually because they need someone to guide them up the mountain. It had just rained recently, and the fog in the mountains was thick. None of the villagers were willing to take on the risk, so the outsiders came to my house. The leader, Jack, spoke to me in Mandarin. He said they were willing to pay $5,000 for me to guide them up the mountain. My mom overheard and immediately pulled me aside. Lowering her voice, she said, "These outsiders have several big bags with them. I bet they're going to the mountain on the west side to raid tombs. This is too dangerous. You can't agree to this." "Mom, they said they're going up the east mountain to enjoy the scenery. You're overthinking it. Those bags probably just have cameras in them." I reassured her and sent her to the kitchen to cook. Then I turned back, smiling, and said to Jack, "I can take you up the mountain, but I want more money." As I spoke, I held up a hand to indicate a higher amount. Jack and his group discussed it among themselves. With no one else in the village willing to help, they reluctantly agreed to my terms. The night before heading up the mountain, I went to visit my grandfather. He was over 80 years old, half asleep in his chair. When he saw me, he mistook me for my great-grandfather and reached out toward me, overjoyed. I asked him, "Grandpa, back when you were on the mountain and ran into the black bear, how did you escape?" The mention of the black bear seemed to make him tremble uncontrollably. He grabbed my hand, his eyes suddenly sharp and clear. "Don't go up there. There's a black bear on the mountain. It ate your great-grandfather and great-grandmother." "Grandpa, did you actually see the black bear yourself?" He shook his head. "The black bear hides in the fog. I only saw its shadow before it pinned me down and bit off part of my arm. It was sheer luck I got away." As he spoke, it was as if he was reliving the moment. He struggled to stand, ready to flee. I had to force him back into his chair. In his old age, his mind wasn't always clear. I couldn't get more answers out of him. So I took the old hunting rifle hanging on the wall and brought it with me. From afar, I saw Jack standing at the fence of our courtyard, kicking at pebbles. It seemed like he was waiting for me. I invited him into the house. He got straight to the point, asking, "Alex, how do you plan to deal with the black bear?" It was clear he had heard the legend of the black bear guarding the tomb before coming here and had prepared accordingly. I lowered my head and calmly wiped the rust off the hunting rifle with a rag. A black bear weighs hundreds of pounds. Once it pins you down, there's no escaping. Jack took the rifle from me and scoffed. "This old gun? It's not even good enough for rabbits." He pulled a handgun from his pocket and handed it to me. "Here, take this. It's for protection." I didn't take it. Instead, I told him, "Buying and selling guns is illegal here." Jack just laughed. He said he had also prepared pork, thick ropes, and other equipment. It seemed he was confident in handling the black bear. Early the next morning, Jack and his group were ready to go. After saying goodbye to my mom, we entered the mountain. The trail was rugged and steep. At first, the fog wasn't too dense, and visibility was about 3 or 4 meters. But the deeper we went into the forest, the worse the fog got. When the fog became so thick that you couldn't see your hand in front of you, Jack came up with a plan. We all held onto a single rope, with me leading at the front and Jack at the very back. If anyone encountered danger, they were to shout to alert the rest. We walked for a while. The man behind me, Mike, said he wanted to drink some water. His water bottle was in a backpack carried by the third person. He turned back to grab it. Suddenly, he shouted, "Where's Chris?" "There's no one behind me." My heart skipped a beat. I quickly stopped walking. Jack called out from the back, "What's going on? Chris, are you there? Say something." For a long moment, there was no response. Mike kept muttering, "This is bad. This is bad. Chris is gone." Jack walked up quickly, but just then, Chris's voice rang out, "I'm here. Mike's just messing with you." Chris and Mike burst out laughing. Through the thick fog, I couldn't see Jack's face, but I could feel his frustration. He tugged at the rope and said, "There's a black bear on this mountain. This is life or death. Stay alert. If you're dragged away, don't expect me to save you. There's no bear. It's just a legend," Mike said dismissively. "And even if there is a bear, so what? We've got guns. I'll shoot it with one shot." Chris chuckled and said, "Jack, you're not afraid of tigers or lions. Why would you be scared of a bear?" But before he finished speaking, Jack tugged the rope again. "Where's Tom? He hasn't said a word in a while. Tom, are you there?" "Tom's a quiet guy. He doesn't talk much anyway," Mike said, still unconcerned. "Maybe Tom wet himself from fright," Chris joked. Jack's voice turned icy. Everyone stopped moving. Tom might actually be gone. The group fell silent after Jack's words. They all knew Jack wasn't the type to joke around. If he said Tom was missing, then Tom was probably in real trouble. Chris likely turned to look back and exclaimed, disbelief in his voice, "This is weird. When did Tom fall behind?" No way," Mike stammered, realizing how serious this was. "I didn't hear a single sound just now. Could he have gone off to relieve himself?" Chris said, "That guy, he didn't even tell us he was going. I've been holding it in this whole time, too." I stayed silent, slinging the hunting rifle off my back and holding it in my arms. I lowered my head to examine the ground. It had rained the night before, so footprints were clearly visible. If Tom had gone off to relieve himself, there should have been a set of footprints leading away from the rest of ours. But after searching the area for a while, I found only the footprints of the 4 of us moving forward. Tom had vanished as if into thin air. "Come look at this," I said, pointing at the ground. "It looks like drag marks." "Whoa!" Mike squatted down to inspect it. "Why are there 2 big pits here? Could these be bear tracks? Did Tom really get dragged away by the black bear?" "Alex, if it really is a black bear, could it approach us without making any noise?" Jack asked me. I shook my head, unable to answer him. After all, I'd never seen a black bear myself. "Hey, is that a figure over there?" Chris pointed in a direction, but the fog was so thick that none of us could tell where he was pointing. We could only look around, but the mist was so dense that all we saw were faint outlines of trees. Mike turned and gave Chris a kick. "What figure? Stop trying to scare us." Jack said, "Everyone, raise your hands and place them on the shoulders of the person in front of you. Stay close together." Then he turned to me to discuss. What now? Should we split up and search for Tom? No, the fog is too thick. If you get lost in the mountains, I won't be able to find you, and you'll end up trapped here. Then stay here. I'll go look for him, Jack suggested again. I grabbed his arm. If Tom was really dragged away by a black bear, leaving the group would be a death sentence. Not this, not that. By the time you come up with a plan, Tom will have been chewed to bits by the black bear, Mike said, pulling out his handgun. Jack, I'll go look for him. With that, he ran off without waiting for permission. I thought to myself, this guy is really reckless. The three of us, Jack, Chris, and I, sat down in a triangular formation on the spot. Jack kept glancing at his watch. Mike had already been gone for an hour. Chris was starting to get anxious, shouting a few times, Tom, Mike, are you there? No one answered. The only sounds in the forest were the occasional calls of birds. Jack, maybe I should go look for them too? Chris stood up. Don't go. I stopped him. Back in the day, my great-grandfather and great-grandmother disappeared just like this. One searching for the other. Jack pulled a plastic bag from his pack. Inside were 2 large chunks of pork tied together with a rope. Chris looked at him, puzzled. What are you doing now? Seriously, you're thinking about grilling meat at a time like this? You idiot. All you think about is food. Jack smacked the back of his head. Go find a tall tree branch and hang the meat up there. Tie the rope around your waist and don't wander too far. Jack, are you trying to lure the black bear out? I asked. Jack nodded as he loaded his gun. We can't sit here wasting time. The black bear is in hiding and we're exposed. It's smart. It wants to pick us off one by one. If that's the case, we might as well face it head on. By now, Chris had already tied up the pork. I was about to remark that the forest didn't just have black bears but other wild animals too, when suddenly a figure came running from a distance. When the figure got closer, I could make out its shape. It was Mike. Jack, there's a black bear. I swear, there's really a black bear. He stumbled forward, tripping over a branch in his path. His voice trembled as he spoke. Just now, I saw someone waving at me. I thought it was Tom, but when I called to him, he didn't respond. It must have been the black bear. I've heard black bears can mimic people. They're cunning. Mike was certain. Good thing I ran fast, otherwise I'd be done for. Chris helped Mike up but then pulled his hand back suddenly. Tentatively, he asked, Mike, do you remember what year we started doing this? Mike looked at him, confused. 1987. Back then, you were selling fake jade on the black market and almost conned me out of $500. Oh, Mike, you've got a great memory. Chris breathed a sigh of relief and put an arm around his shoulder. Mike kicked him on the backside. Did you think I was a black bear in disguise? Chris was embarrassed, knowing his suspicion had been spot on. He quickly changed the subject. Hey, Mike, weren't you saying earlier that if you ran into a black bear, you'd shoot it dead? Shoot my ass. The bear's skin is so thick, my bullets would run out before I could even hurt it. Could it be tougher than the zombies in coffins? Well duh. At least with zombies, we've got mule hoofs to deal with them. With black bears, I've only got a few bullets. Their incessant banter was giving me a headache. Jack looked grim. Tom is most likely gone for good. I walked over and took down the pork. This won't lure the black bear. Let's head towards the tomb entrance. If the black bear guards the tomb, we're bound to encounter it there. When I was a kid, my grandfather warned me not to go up the mountain to look for the tomb. Later, when he developed dementia, he pulled an old piece of parchment from under his pillow. It had a map of the mountain. He pointed to a red dot and said, "This is the tomb's entrance. Years ago, your great-grandfather dug a tunnel and found the tomb door. Too bad the black bear ate him, and he didn't bring back a single treasure." He sounded regretful. If my great-grandfather hadn't died, our family would have been wealthy by now. I followed up, "Did you ever try to find the tomb later?" My grandfather shook his head. "I found your grandmother near the tunnel your great-grandfather dug. Her body was only half intact, her intestines ripped out. Her eyes were still open, and she grabbed my hand, saying, 'There's a black bear. Run.' Why didn't you call the villagers to come up and catch the black bear?" I asked, baffled. There were dozens of men in the village armed with hunting rifles and hoes. Catching one bear wouldn't have been hard. My grandfather didn't answer. His mind once again clouded. He clasped my hand and repeated the warning. "Alex, never go up the mountain. There's a black bear in the mountain. It eats people." Snapping back to the present, I held the map and led Jack and the others toward the red mark. Jack was silent the entire way. According to Chris, Tom was Jack's cousin. If Tom was truly gone, Jack wouldn't be able to explain it to his family back home. Mike was just about to crack a joke when he suddenly let out a yell and fell into a hole. The hole was narrow, its entrance covered with leaves. At the bottom, Mike sat clutching his backside. Damn it! Why am I always the one getting hurt? What on earth is digging into my waist? Chris pulled out a flashlight and crouched down to shine it inside. Mike, are you okay? What's down there? Before Chris finished his sentence, Mike let out a piercing scream. Oh God! These look like human bones. For a moment, the hole fell silent. We all thought Mike had gotten into trouble. Jack quickly tied a rope around his waist, ready to climb down. But Mike lifted his head and shouted, "Get down here and see for yourselves. This looks like an old tomb tunnel." The hole was about 5 meters deep. At first, it was just wide enough for one person to slip through, but it grew roomier the farther down you went. Soon we were all down at the bottom. Mike pointed his flashlight at a far wall. Look over there. What we saw made our skin crawl. Hundreds of stacked skulls, along with countless severed limbs and bones. Jesus, what happened to all these people? Chris shivered, holding his arms tight. I have a bad feeling about this tunnel. There's a cold draft coming from behind. Should we just head back? Mike, a piece of dried grass in his mouth, patted Chris on the shoulder. Come on, Chris, you're chickening out before we've even seen a zombie? Earlier, you were more scared than I was. All it took was a shadow of a bear to make you wet yourself. Chris shot back unapologetically. Could Tom be among these bones? Mike's tone suddenly turned somber. These bones seem to be quite old. Jack crouched down and picked up a piece, examining it closely. The bite marks suggest they were gnawed by wild animals. Looks like the legend of the black bear guarding the tomb is true. But this black bear might not be ordinary. Holy crap, Mike said. Could it be a ghost bear? What ghost bear? A bear turned into a ghost. Chris widened his eyes. Mike, can you say something sensible for once? He's not making it up, Jack said. I've heard the elders talk about it. Ghost bears that guard tombs absorb corpse fumes for years, resulting in mutations. They're 1 to 2 times larger than regular black bears and can live for hundreds of years. They're faster and more agile too, making them incredibly tough to deal with. As he spoke, Jack calmly scanned the area. I had remained silent, standing in front of the pile of skulls, lost in thought. My great-grandfather and great-grandmother were probably among these. Great-grandfather, great-grandmother, please protect me so I can safely leave this mountain, earn the money, and pay for my dad's treatment. Alex, isn't the tunnel your great-grandfather dug somewhere near here? Jack asked. I pulled out the map and studied it for a moment before looking up at the cave entrances in front of us. If I'm not mistaken, this is a tunnel dug by other tomb raiders. One of these entrances should lead to the tomb door. Mike walked a couple of steps toward one of the entrances, shining his flashlight inside. Jack, it's pitch black in here. If a black bear is hiding inside, we won't even have a chance to draw our guns. Chris moved closer to me and asked, Alex, your great-grandfather was a skilled tomb raider. You must know something about dealing with ghost bears, right? I shook my head. For 100 years, no one in the village had dared to target this tomb, probably out of fear of the ghost bear. Jack looked up at the ceiling of the cave and said, This place isn't safe to stay in for long. Let's climb back up and come up with a plan. Mike tossed a grappling hook upward and, after securing the rope, said to Jack, You go first. We'll cover the rear. Chris is bigger. It'll take him longer to climb. Let him go first, Jack said, pushing Chris to the front. But Chris hesitated. Jack, how about you go first? What if I get to the top and the black bear is waiting for me? Annoyed, Mike kicked him. Coward, fine, I'll go first. Grabbing the rope, Mike, tall and long-legged, quickly climbed up to the top, cleared the area, and threw the rope back down. Damn it! I was scaring myself. There's nothing up here. Relieved, Chris tied the rope around his waist. Jack, I'll go up and wait for you guys. Jack nodded and said to me, Alex, you go next. I'll bring up the rear. I frowned. Jack, did you hear something? Above us, Chris was still climbing, panting heavily as he went. Jack heard my comment, perked up his ears, and listened intently. Whatever he heard prompted him to shine his flashlight at one of the cave entrances. Alex, was this cave this shallow a moment ago? Following the beam of the flashlight, I thought for a second. Earlier, when Mike had shown his light into the cave, it seemed much deeper. It hadn't reached the end. "Something's wrong, Jack," I shouted in panic. But it was too late. A massive black bear charged at us. Jack shoved me aside, taking the brunt of the attack. He was slammed into the cave wall by the bear's paw, while Chris, still dangling above, looked down and trembled at the sight below. "Jack, are you okay? Jack?" Hearing the commotion, Mike leaned over the cave's edge to look down. His limited view made him shout anxiously, "What the hell's going on down there? Chris, why are you dawdling? Chris, climb up. Don't look back," Jack ordered as he pulled himself up, drew his handgun, and fired a shot between the black bear's eyes. The gunshot echoed through the cave, making my head spin. The black bear let out a roar, clutching its head, baring its teeth, and crawling toward us. I raised my hunting rifle, intending to shoot, but the rusted gun jammed. I couldn't load it, and I cursed under my breath. This could be the day I sign off on my life. Mike pulled Chris up out of the cave, then dropped the rope back down. "Jack, I'm coming down to save you," he shouted. "Stay where you are. Don't make it worse," Jack shouted back, firing a few more shots at the bear and turning to me. "Alex, climb up now." I grabbed hold of the rope, but as I looked down, the black bear rose again. Blood was gushing from the wounds on its body, and its eyes gleamed a crimson red. Its mouth opened, revealing 2 sharp fangs. The bear was enraged. "Jack, the rope is strong enough. Climb up quickly," I called out to him. Instead, Jack started circling the cave wall, trying to draw the bear's attention away. "Don't worry about me, Alex. Get up now, hurry." Although wounded from several gunshots, the bear was still incredibly fast. It swiped at Jack with its sharp claws, catching his arm. Jack winced in pain, letting out a sharp breath as he pulled a knife from his boot to defend himself in close combat. I was nearly at the narrow part of the cave above when I looked down and saw the bear pinning Jack to the ground. Its drool was dripping all over his neck. This wasn't good. He wouldn't last much longer. I aimed my hunting rifle, finally managing to load it this time, and fired at the bear's eye. The bear let go of Jack and howled, clutching its face. Jack lay on the ground, gasping for air. "Jack, aim for the bear's stomach. It's thinner there," I shouted. Jack understood immediately. He quickly sat up and took advantage of the bear's distraction to stab his knife deep into its belly. With a strong motion, he sliced downward, splitting the bear's stomach open. "Damn it! What the hell is inside this thing?" I shone my flashlight into the wound. My brow furrowed as dark black insects began crawling out of the bear's stomach. Jack stomped on one. "This is bad, corpse beetles. Jack, we need to run now." With his experience in tomb raiding, Jack recognized the danger immediately. He swore and sprinted away as countless black beetles poured out from the bear's stomach, covering the ground in a thick, writhing mass. Jack leapt onto the cave wall and grabbed the end of the rope. Tossing a handful of powder onto the beetles below, he managed to repel some of them. "Get up there now," he ordered me. Exhausted, I climbed up to the top of the cave. "Mike, Chris, give me a hand," I called out, but no one answered. A chill ran down my spine, and I hesitated to extend my hand further. Jack saw me stop and asked, "What's wrong?" "Jack, I think there's no one up there," I said, pointing to the cave's entrance above. Jack remained calm. He reloaded his handgun and tossed it to me. "Be careful." Clutching the handgun tightly, I slowly peered above the cave entrance, scanning the area. All I could hear was the rustling of wind through the leaves. Where had Mike and Chris gone? It didn't make sense for them to abandon us and run. I climbed out of the cave, cautiously surveying the surroundings. Jack followed close behind. "So what now?" I handed the handgun back to Jack. Jack crouched down, examining the footprints on the ground, then looked up into the distance with a bewildered expression. "Did they vanish, just like Tom?" We searched the nearby caves for a long time but found no trace of Mike, Chris, or the black bear. Jack speculated that the black bear might only attack those who come near the tomb entrance. Perhaps the others hadn't been harmed yet. Jack's arm and chest were injured from the fight, and he was bleeding heavily. He needed medical treatment, so we decided to head back to the village and come up with a new plan. As we approached the village, I saw my mom standing at the entrance from a distance. When she saw me, she let out a sigh of relief, but upon noticing Jack's injuries, her brow furrowed. "What happened to you? And where are the other 3? Why didn't they come back with you?" They're slower. They're behind us. Jack lied to brush it off. My mom gave a soft hum. Something about her expression didn't seem quite right. I asked, Mom, did something happen in the village? At first, she hesitated, unwilling to tell me. If you don't tell me, I'll go ask the village chief, I pressed. Finally, she said, a few babies have gone missing. She explained that the missing children had just learned to walk and were at the age where they'd wander around the yard. The parents had been cooking inside, and when they came out, the kids were gone. The entire village had searched high and low but failed to find them. Your grandfather said it was the black bear that came down the mountain and took the children, my mom said as she handed a medical kit to Jack. Your wounds seem pretty serious. Are you sure you don't need to go to the hospital in town? Jack took the kit, thanked her, and exchanged a glance with me. I rubbed my stomach and said, Mom, I'm starving. Go make us something to eat. After she left, I shut the door and sat down to speak with Jack. Black bears don't usually come down the mountain. It seems we've provoked them, and this is their warning to the village. Sorry. It's my brothers and me who insisted on going up the mountain and caused trouble for the villagers, he said. Using his mouth, he tugged the thread to stitch up the wound on his arm, beads of sweat forming on his forehead from the pain. I wrapped his arm with gauze and said, You were clawed by a bear. You should get a tetanus shot. Jack chuckled. In our line of work, we don't even flinch when zombies grab us. Then he seemed to recall something. By the way, how do you know about corpse beetles? I thought for a moment and explained. One of my great-grandfather's companions, Henry, was a well-known tomb raider in the area back in the day. After my great-grandfather was eaten by the bear, Henry gave up tomb raiding completely. Henry had a grandson named Henry III, who had visited my grandfather a few times and told me some stories about tomb raiding. Before leaving, he repeatedly warned me never to go up the mountain. Jack asked, Where is this Henry III now? Did he ever tell you how to deal with black bears? I shook my head and said I didn't know. Late at night, the village chief arrived at my house with several men. Upon seeing Jack, he looked displeased and said gravely, Alex, the black bears have come down from the mountain. You and your mom are alone at home, so make sure to lock all the doors and windows. I stayed quiet for a moment before finally speaking. Chief, Jack's brothers went missing in the mountains, and now the village has lost a few children. We can't just sit here and do nothing. Why don't we gather the men from the village and go up the mountain to deal with the black bears? That way we can stop living in fear. The chief glared at me. Don't think I don't know what's on your mind. Your great-grandfather liked to call himself a tomb raider. But let's be honest, he was just a grave robber. You're thinking about the treasures in that tomb, aren't you? I shook my head. Chief, if I was interested in tomb raiding, I wouldn't have waited until now. Jack gave me a thoughtful look. Alex, your great-grandparents died because of this. Your grandfather spent half his life paying the price. Don't you understand? The things in that tomb are cursed. The chief sighed deeply. We all know your dad needs money for his treatment, but you're the last in your family's line. Don't ruin yourself too. I lowered my head. Chief, it's true I caused this mess. But with the children missing, I have to find them. We'll go up the mountain with Alex to look for the kids, some of the men declared. Alex is right. We can't just sit and wait anymore. Back when my dad was younger, he was known for his kindness, helping many villagers out of tough situations. Because of that, now that my family was struggling, many were willing to lend a hand, whether with money or effort. But the chief was still hesitant. Jack spoke up. I have a way to deal with the black bears, but I need your help. Seeing the situation, the chief reluctantly agreed, saying, Fine, we can deal with the black bears, but the tomb must remain untouched. Our village has been guarding this mountain for generations, and the clan records state clearly, messing with that tomb brings disaster. Jack and I nodded in agreement. The next day, the village men armed themselves with hunting rifles and bows, and a group of dozens marched up the mountain. Jack and I led the way. I asked him, What's your plan to deal with the black bears? If they appear in the forest, we might have a chance with a group attack. But with the thick fog, we can't even see them. And if we go into the tomb to find them, the confined space will turn our numbers into a liability. Jack patted the backpack he was carrying. If it comes to that, we'll force them out. I had secretly checked his pack earlier and saw a few incendiary grenades. In that moment, I understood his plan. As we made our way up the mountain, we used a headcount method. Every so often, we checked the numbers to make sure no one had fallen behind. Perhaps because our group was so large this time, we walked for half a day without encountering anything unusual. The chief suggested we take a break to drink some water before moving on. Jack and I sat together. Climbing the mountain with injuries had taken its toll on him. His lips were pale and bloodless. What do you think happened to Tom and the others? Could the bears have hidden them in the tomb? I asked, thinking aloud. Jack shook his head. No. Their mission is to guard the tomb and stop anyone from approaching it. They wouldn't hide inside the tomb and lead us there to rescue them. My guess is they took Tom, Mike, and even the children to scare us. Scare us? I asked, incredulous. Black bears eat people. Wouldn't food right in front of them tempt them to take a bite? Maybe they're old. I was stunned. From my great-grandfather's time to now, the black bears must have been alive for hundreds of years. Jack added, last night, when I fought that bear, I could clearly feel its age and weakness. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to kill it so easily. Before Jack finished speaking, a villager came over, saying they'd found what looked like black bear footprints and droppings nearby. Jack and I went over to investigate. Using his hand, Jack measured the size of the footprints and said, this one looks like a bear cub. If we capture this cub, could we control the adult bears? The villager asked. Jack nodded and handed him some pork from his backpack. The droppings are fresh. The cub should be close by. Set a trap and gather some people to capture it. Jack and I returned to the cave entrance from the day before. He lit several incendiary grenades and tossed them inside, then sealed the entrance with large rocks. That's so cruel. Aren't you worried the tomb zombies will wake up, climb out, and go after you? I couldn't resist teasing him. You've blocked the entrance. How will the black bears get out now? Dusting off his hands, Jack sat down nearby. Based on my years of tomb raiding experience, there's definitely another exit down there. Just wait and see. No sooner had he sat down than a villager arrived holding a squirming black bear cub. We got it. We got it. Look at this. It hasn't even grown its teeth yet. Yeah. Who'd have thought this little thing could grow to be hundreds of pounds and eat people? Jack smirked. Tie it up. Tell the villagers to hide behind the trees, get their weapons ready, and be prepared to fire. The bear cub struggled in the villagers' grip, letting out pitiful cries. I felt a pang of guilt. Wasn't this just as cruel as the bears taking the village children to threaten us? Jack and I hid behind a large tree. He pulled a piece of candy from his pocket and handed it to me. Are you scared? We don't know how many bears will show up. I unwrapped the candy and popped it into my mouth. I'm not scared. I trust you. You're braver than Chris and Tom. Once the bears are dealt with, do you want to go into the tomb with me for a look? He asked. Are you trying to recruit me? He simply chuckled in response. After about half an hour, I caught sight of several blurry figures in the distance. They were tall and didn't look like human silhouettes. Jack raised his hunting rifle cautiously and said to me, if the black bears attack us, don't climb a tree. I nodded. Black bears are expert climbers. Climbing a tree would only leave me backed into a corner with no escape. Jack walked ahead, and I followed behind him. After walking a few steps, it seemed the black bears weren't coming any closer. Jack whistled to signal the villagers to hold their positions. With better than average vision, I grabbed Jack's arm and said, look, isn't that shadow waving at us? It seems like it's trying to lead us somewhere, Jack replied. Jack told the villagers to stay put while he and I followed the black bear from a distance. After about 500 meters, the bear stopped, and more shadows began appearing in the fog, one after another. I counted 6 in total. We were surrounded by black bears. Standing back to back with Jack, I nervously asked, what do we do now? Shall we signal the villagers? Jack held his gun firmly and stared in one direction. Look over there. Doesn't that look like someone hanging? I squinted in the same direction and muttered, holy crap. It is. There's more than one. Mike is hanging in the trees too. Alex, we're here to help. The chief, hearing the commotion, arrived with the villagers. One of the men was carrying the bear cub, whose cries seemed to enrage the adult black bears. They bared their teeth at us, poised to attack. The villagers, seeing this, raised their hunting rifles, ready for a confrontation. Jack pulled me back a few steps and called out to the villagers behind us, don't shoot. Even if we outnumber them and have firepower, fighting head-on would result in heavy casualties. Then what do you suggest? The chief asked. Ghost bears can understand human language. Let me talk to them. Jack placed his gun on the ground and addressed the black bears. I know you didn't eat my brothers. You took the village's children as a warning. The black bears roared, seemingly acknowledging his words. Yesterday, I killed one of your kind, but over the centuries, you've also eaten many villagers. Let's strike a deal. Release my brothers and the children, and we'll release the cub. We'll also promise to never approach this tomb again and leave the mountain immediately. The air grew still. The largest black bear gestured to the others, and the bears slowly began to retreat. Did it work? The chief exclaimed, delighted. A villager asked, are they really not going to attack us? What if we release the cub and they go back on their word? Yeah. Can wild animals even keep promises? If you ask me, we should just fight them now and get it over with. Enough! The chief shouted. The clan records make it clear ghost bears guard the tomb on Longling Mountain. If we kill them, tomb raiders will come here unchecked, and we'll never have peace in the village. The villagers fell silent, no longer daring to object. The chief handed the cub to me, then led the villagers to retreat. Jack ran to the tree and used his knife to cut the vines holding the captives. Once Mike and the others were settled along with the children, Jack turned to me and said, Alex, go ahead and release the cub. When I didn't move, he repeated forcefully, Alex, hurry up and release the cub. The ghost bears are getting angry. I turned around, gripping the cub's neck, and flashed a sinister smile. Jack quickly caught on. Alex, so this was your plan all along, to use us and the villagers' strength to deal with the black bears. Alex, I understand you have your reasons, but trust me, you can't explore the tomb alone. I ignored him. Using the cub as leverage, I headed toward the entrance of the tunnel my great-grandfather had dug. The black bears followed closely. Just as I was about to climb down into the tunnel with the cub, one of the bears lunged at me aggressively. I rolled to the side to avoid the attack, but the cub slipped out of my grasp, and I realized I'd made a critical mistake. When I got back on my feet, the bears, now with blood-red eyes, began to surround me. Great-grandfather, great-grandmother, looks like Alex is about to join you. Such a shame. I won't be able to help my dad with his treatment. I pulled out my knife, ready to fight them. The black bears closed in. Just as I was about to lose all hope, Jack grabbed the escaped bear cub. Holding it up, he said, We made a deal, and deals must be honored. The lead bear let out a deafening roar. Jack helped me to my feet and dragged me down the mountain, sprinting for quite a while before finally tossing the cub away. Looking back at the hazy figures in the distance, I exhaled deeply in relief. On the way down, I asked, Are you really giving up on the tomb? Jack glanced back once and said, I've explored many tombs, and all the real danger is usually at the bottom. This is the first time we almost lost our lives before even going in. Maybe the bears are warning us about something far worse down there. I nodded. I lost control back there. You're lucky you had me, Jack said with a sigh. I was planning to quit tomb raiding after this one, but now it looks like I'll have to retire early. That's a shame, I said. He paused for a moment, then suddenly asked, Alex, is Henry III actually you?